Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Posted. This is number 7. Want to warn you before we get started that I do have my windows open, and for those of you that are feeling current and watching these in a current way, you know it's very windy outside today. So if you hear lots of wind, that's why. So when we left off, we're hearing about Rose and how she is at least showing up and kind of being a part of things a little bit. We know that they used to only be a group of 4, and they've always been fine with being a group of 4, but now they've got to think about maybe changing a little bit. And when we left off, he basically said it's that she was who she was, and we were who we were, and there had always, ever been only 4. So that's when we left off here. I didn't see Rose in either of my next 2 classes. I heard her name whispered once or twice. I figured it was none of my business, so I tried not to listen. Right before heading to the cafeteria for lunch, I stopped by my locker to find another note from Dee Dee stuck to the door. The 4th one that morning, counting 1 in English, all presumably from the same yellow pad. This one just said breadsticks with a exclamation point at the end. Underneath was a smiley face in case the exclamation point didn't give it away. Dee Dee only got school lunch on breadsticks day. He still showed up with his Lord of the Rings lunchbox, but he ignored the sandwich that was packed inside. He was a garlic fiend, and the butter the lunch lady slathered those sticks in could slay a coven of vampires. I stuck the note to Dee Dee's forehead 5 minutes later as Bench and I sat down at our table. If you leave me any more of these, I'm going to start demanding that you take my calls and fetch me coffee, I said. He stuck one in my locker too, Bench said. Wolf held up 6 fingers. He wrote you 6 notes? Well, one of them just had a drawing of a whale on it, Wolf said. It was an airplane. I was bored in math. Excuse me for sharing. Dee Dee peeled the sticky note from his forehead. I would text you, but he held up empty, phoneless hands. Day 2 of the Great Confiscation had gone only slightly better than day 1, with only one student, Becca Peachman, practicing a form of nonviolent protest and going limp in the hallways, having to be dragged to first period by her armpits. In his phone's absence, Dee Dee was making do with what he had. Listen, they made us buy 4 packs of those stupid Post-it things at the start of every year, and we don't need them for any of our classes, so I figured why not put them to good use? Well, I think we need to qualify what defines good use, I said. Maybe and teach you how to draw, Wolf added. Bench elbowed me, and I followed his eyes to the end of the lunch line. Rose Holland was standing there, tray in hand, surveying the landscape again. I felt bad for her. I had been in that same spot. I watched as she approached the closest table of girls, and then noticed Beth Strands from English, the one who had scooted her chair away before, look up. She must have had a nasty look on her face, because Rose immediately steered around and wandered towards the corner. That was Beth's superpower. She could wither you with a glance. The witherer. Some people were just like that. There were quite a few empty tables, though. Rose would find a place to sit. I turned back to Dee Dee, who was telling a story about a kid in a band who got caught with his phone. He panicked when the teacher came in and tried to hide it inside his tuba. Yeah, that sounds like something you would do, I teased. Dee Dee pretended to be offended. I played the trumpet, remember? A phone wouldn't fit. Dee Dee played in the school band, mostly because his parents insisted on it. Wolf refused to play in the school band on the grounds that they sucked, although he would never tell Dee Dee that. Honestly, they sounded like a herd of dying giraffes being chased by a pack of howler monkeys. Dee Dee wadded up a sticky note that said breadsticks and flicked it across the table. He was aiming for me, and instead it landed in my applesauce. 2 points, Wolf said. Actually, the other side of the table is 3-point territory, Bench corrected. It was a lucky shot, I said, picking up the dripping wadded yellow pad from the cup and flicking it back. This is what lunchtime usually looked like for us, building towers out of milk cartons, stuffing veggie straws up our nose, flicking things at each other. You couldn't do it again in a million tries, I dared. It was a safe bet. Dee Dee made Bench look like Cam Newton most days. Fine, but if I do, I get your last breadstick, he said, pointing at my tray. I agreed. Most of the time I ended up giving it to him anyway. Dee Dee lined up the wadded ball of paper, closed one eye, and gave it a flick, and this time it sailed high and wide, way over my shoulder. I heard it hit something with a wet slap. You got me. Dee Dee's face went ash white, which was kind of remarkable given his Indian heritage. I jerked around to see Rose Holland standing beside our table, looming over us, her tray sporting only a package of cheese and peanut butter crackers and a chocolate milk. There was a splotch of applesauce on her black sweater, the size of a quarter, kind of like a gunshot, right below her shoulder. Oh, man, I am so sorry, Dee Dee blathered, suddenly bug-eyed, trying to shrink beneath his lunchbox. Probably afraid of that milk carton being smashed over his head, which is exactly what somebody like Jason Baker or Cameron Cole would have done. But Rose just looked at her sweater and shrugged, and then rubbed the spot of sauce with her thumb. I got this at a garage sale, she said. It's seen worse. She was standing between me and Wolf, and I could see now that the sweater was frayed at the bottom, her jeans were worn at the knees, and the laces of her boots equally ragged at the ends. She was even more imposing up close. Rose looked at the only empty chair at her table, then looked back at her tray. I flicked my eyes around the room, trying to be oblivious, or trying not to be obvious. There was still plenty of empty seats. In fact, there was still an empty table 3 down from us. That's probably where she was going to be going when she got hit. Dee Dee and his terrible aim. You're in my English class, she said, looking at me first, holding her tray close. The 3 of you, always. And you and I have history together, she said, looking at Bench. It's JJ, right? Bench nodded, his lips tight. It was the face he used whenever other people's parents tried to talk to him, a half smile barely hiding the phoniness. He looked over his shoulder at a cluster of tables that had other 8th graders. Dee Dee watched the pseudo nacho cheese congeal in his plastic cup. I looked at the empty chair. Don't say anything, I thought to myself. Don't say anything. That's how it worked. Don't say anything one way or another, and you never have to take responsibility one way or the other, and then everything goes on like normal. She'll just keep walking. Wolf thought differently, though. He gestured to the empty chair. You want to sit with us? Dee Dee coughed, or choked, I couldn't tell which. Suddenly, I became aware of all the sounds in the lunchroom. The cling-clang from the kitchen, the scrape of chairs along the floor, the constant buzzing of 100 voices talking at once. I held my breath, waiting for the new girl to realize that Wolf was only being polite, because that's the kind of person he was, and to do the equally polite thing and decline the offer. A casual, no thanks, maybe some other time. I thought you'd never ask, Rose said. She sat down her tray and pulled out her chair. And suddenly we weren't a square anymore. The strangeness of it hit me. Like how sometimes you're on the bus taking the exact same route you've taken 100 times before with every coffee shop and every neighborhood sign memorized, but you look up and now you're certain the bus has taken a wrong turn because everything seems unfamiliar. It takes you a moment to get your bearings. Bench and I looked at each other. For 2 years, we sat at the same table together. Never once had a girl sit down next to us, but Rose Holland, she didn't seem to care. She settled into her seat and proceeded to unwrap her crackers, the crinkle of the package sounding much louder than it should have been. I tried to read Wolf's face to see if he thought he miscalculated, if his plan to do the right thing had backfired, but he didn't give anything away. He just went back to eating his lunch, maybe smiling a little. Dee Dee, on the other hand, could not stop staring. You know it's breadstick day, right? He mumbled after 10 seconds of awkward silence, as if confirming that there was something abnormal about a girl who did not like garlic butter-soaked lumps of bread stretched to look like a grandmother's gnarly fingers. I'm on a strict diet, Rose Holland explained. She had a raspy sort of voice. It seemed to fit her. Of peanut butter crackers? Dee Dee asked. No, of foods that stick to the top of your mouth, she replied, stuffing in the first of the crackers. She chewed in slow motion, it seemed, as if she was afraid of making too much noise. Then she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Maybe she was nervous, too. We all watched her silently, like a girl eating crackers was the most fascinating thing we've ever seen. Finally, Rose cleared her throat and leaned across the table, the package in her hand. If you all want one, all you have to do is ask. She thrust the crackers at each of us. I blushed and looked down. Bench looked away as well, taking an interest in a conversation at another table he couldn't even hear. Dee Dee fiddled with his milk carton. Only Wolf managed to find the words, no thanks. But even if he couldn't sense it, I could tell. The disruption to the natural order of the universe. After another 20 seconds of awkward as walking in on your dad shaving in the bathroom quiet, Rose set her crackers down, leaned back in the chair, and let out a sigh. Okay, she said. I'm guessing you're all new to this girl sitting at the table thing. So how about this? I promise I won't bite you or give you cooties or whatever else it is that you're all flipping out over. I won't talk to you about my hair or blather on and on about celebrity heartthrobs or the girls I hate, because frankly, I've only been here for 3 hours, which is not enough time to hate anybody already. I won't discuss brands of moisturizer or lip gloss or use the word crush in any kind of non-destructive capacity. And in return, maybe you can stop looking at me like I'm some sort of deranged lunatic. How does that sound? Rose Holland smiled and noticed the freckles on her nose, so light and small, not unlike the constellations of Wolf's cheeks. Her eyes were really kind of pretty. Not that I would ever say anything out loud to anyone, especially not her. Surprisingly, Dee Dee was the first one to speak. We don't really talk to girls, he said. I mean, we can talk to them, just not, like about them to them. Not that, like, I don't know, we do, like, talk to them. I mean, like, not usually. His voice trailed off. Don't listen to Dee Dee, Wolf said. He lives in his own little fantasy world. We are completely capable of talking to a girl. Then he proceeded to say nothing else. I fiddled with my last breadstick. You know, it's really not that hard, Rose said. We're like you, only smarter. It was a joke. At least I was pretty sure it was a joke, but I was too nervous to laugh. You know, just talk about whatever you would normally talk about, stuff you're interested in, like, what do you do? What's your thing? She looked at me when she said it. Our thing. Our thing was usually sitting here by ourselves, being goofy and not self conscious. Our thing was not having anyone else ask us what our thing was because, frankly, nobody cared what our thing was. So we could do our thing, whatever that was, without worrying about talking about it. I said. Dee Dee added. Well, Wolf said, Bench here, he plays 57 different sports. 3 sports, Bench said curtly, finally snapping back to attention. And he doesn't play them as much as he encourages other people to play them, I added, which earned me the sharpest sideways glance from Bench. So you're a cheerleader, Rose said. He's a looking at athlete, Dee Dee corrected. Bench started ripping off little pieces of bedstick, squeezing the grease between his fingers, and then dropping the nubs to his tray. It's cool, Rose said. I like male cheerleaders. And this seemed to embarrass Bench more. And we are going to stop there. See you next time.